What it do?
What it do? What it do?
Dude, oh God, the things and the number of things to talk about. You know, what would you say? It's like 1 out of 3 have not been incarcerated, so it's like a
No, yeah. Over 1 out of 3 black males are going to be incarcerated in their lifetime.
Exactly.
So we still got time.
I'm gonna say
still got time.
30. There's still time.
OJ didn't even do it to his 40s, man. So when you do it big.
It's how upsetting and stressful it is to realize that it says in its lifetime, and I'm like, yo, I'm 30. I hadn't even hit midlife. I mean, if we're talking about black life expectancy, yes.
Well, yeah. I was gonna say, what's that scene from "Don't Be a Menace to South Central" while drinking a juice at the Hills?
I think about that scene all the time.
You know what I'm talking about? Where they're like,
yes.
You don't live to be 23 around here. Someone brings a 23 birthday cake and he immediately gets shot down. Yes. No, I love that we just have that culture that we could just refer back to. We just know.
What's up, bros?
What up, bros?
And welcome to Boy Meets World.
When it's Boy Meets World.
Your Boy Meets World fan cast. I'm Ceej.
And I'm TC.
Okay, so TC, where you at?
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of whatever about this episode. It wasn't a bad episode. It wasn't a good episode.
No, I mean, if anything, it was like a really quick episode. We get a little lesson. I'm for it. It's an in and out.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, it's a filler episode, I guess.
Yeah, well, speaking of in and out and filling some in, let's talk about the Matthews, their marriage. It's kind of spicy. I'm here for it.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about their nicknames for each other, but Alan's nickname for Amy is revealing to me.
Yo, right?
I was like, all right, okay, Amy.
Yeah, all right, here we go. Let's get into it. Tell me about it.
Tell me about it.
Corey and Sean risk money on a horse race. That was very direct.
Yeah, and accurate, I guess. I mean, they're kind of almost like... It's, how sometimes when you watch the trailer and you're like, damn, I just saw this whole movie?
Yeah.
That's basically what Hulu just did with that description. If you saw that description, you're like, all right, I don't really need to see this show.
Yeah, exactly. That was pretty much it. But again, I want to get into it because it has some iconic moments. So in our opening scene, we're in the classroom and the class is investing money. And as usual, this is a lesson for some reason Feeny has concocted. As usual, Topanga and Minkus are partnered up, and Corey and Sean are partnered up. Topanga and Minkus have invested in socially conscious companies in this hypothetical environment, and
well, Topanga also says that their companies don't discriminate on the basis of sex or race.
Race, and good karma.
And it's just Topanga being bae again. Just
exactly.
She is so woke for her time, and I'm just
ahead of
you, boo.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is, well, I was gonna say most people end up like Topanga, but not enough apparently.
I mean, and it would also be nice to have some non-discrimination in the classroom that they're in as they're talking about non-discrimination. But we need color people in the class to have that happen. So
yeah, I mean, yeah. Then
Philadelphia.
I know, right? Dude, don't get me. We can't get into this because I'm reading this book. And
I'm just trying to get you hot. I'm not joking. I'm trying to get you hot.
And again, you know how I feel about things. And so looking at this episode where it deals with white boys and money, I'm just like, white man logic.
They win every time.
Every time. Speaking of which, Corey and Sean, they clearly haven't even started their assignment, as it's clear when they have to present. And
I will give them some credit. They're like, Feeny, bro, this thing isn't due for 2 weeks. Why are you making us do this mini presentation? He's like, well, I just want to see your progress. And it's like, all right, well, we got 2 weeks. Like, I was kind of on board with the kids. It's like, what the hell did you expect us to have? Minkus seemed to have a full project ready to present.
Well, yeah, Minkus, of course, did his assignment ahead of time. I feel like this is one of those things where it's like a book report, where it's like it's due in a month, and then you have the people who did their book report ahead of time, and the people who are like night of.
I was always night of. Always.
I was not night of. I would start it and I would finish it night of. Like I would start ahead of time. That way I had like some kind of idea of what I wanted to do. And then the night of I would finish it.
Nah, bro. I would usually be finishing it like as I was going to school that day.
I remember, I don't know if you remember this. Do you ever remember like copying homework or doing homework like right before class started? I'm talking like seconds.
Yeah, bruh. That's how I got through algebra. Like, what are you? Like,
algebra specifically is what I was thinking about, but I didn't want to call you out.
No, yeah, like I math wasn't my bag, so yeah, there was a lot of that going on. Sorry, OHS, but we represent.
So then, after class and after this presentation, we go into the hallway, and Minkus says, yo, sweet talking to Panga. And all I gotta say is, I'm here for this kind of Minkus. Minkus is just like, yo, baby, I'm a provider. And I was just like, oh, look at this sass. Look at this sweet talker.
I thought he came on really strong. I wasn't a fan.
I mean, he did come on strong, but I'm just saying, like, Minkus is like a short little kid. But my whole thing is, we've talked about this. Minkus is like well aware of himself ahead of his time. Boy be mackin'. He is like confident for like such a small little nerdy kid.
Yeah, he does have some like just swagger that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't seem to be explained at all for his character.
That's just him. That's just me.
You know what? I think he just finds confidence in his intelligence. He like in the same way that a guy with like a fancy car would feel more confident. Like he's just like, no, I'm smart, so I know that's sexy, which is kind of cool.
That's what I'm saying, baby. That's how mink do.
That's how the mink do it.
That's how the mink do, little mink.
Yo, mink daddy.
So, but anyway, the boys come out and of course, they are like mocking Minkus as they always do. And Minkus like, yo, put your money where your mouth is. And how about we do a bet? And then he gets into this bet and he starts off, he's like, how about we do like $5 because you get an allowance. And Corey is, of course, like haggling. He's like, yo, I don't know about this. And Sean's like, done, $10. And I'm like, I assume you're using Corey's money because
no. This whole money thing is not. It doesn't add up to the way we've established money in this universe, where $5 was something that Corey wants at Christmas. This is Valentine's Day. Christmas. Corey was like, I saved up for weeks for $5. And in this episode, we established that both Corey and Sean get $5 allowances each a week.
Wait, did they say that? I didn't see where it said that.
Yes, because in the next scene where and I don't want to jump ahead, but Corey's like, our whole week's allowance is on this horse. And Corey says in the opening to Minkus, he's like, I get $5 a week. That's my snack money. So the other $5 must come from Sean.
See, I just feel, and the way I interpreted it was that Corey fronted Sean the money.
No. This is equal money, equal allowance. It doesn't make sense.
I don't know about that. I think we talking about some Kyle and Obi situation. I think Corey put up the money for Sean because we already know he don't have it.
Or he's getting money from Frankie Two Toes.
Which is another thing that's possible. So anyway, to kind of close out this opening scene, we get the fact that the boys go in for it. Corey tosses them back down to $10 because at the time Topanga's like, no, I don't know about this, and I feel like I should have equal say. And Minkus is like, it is a bet of wits against me versus them, and she's like, yo, I'm all in. So from that.
Well, Sean's like, all right, well, let me call my uncle Frankie Two Toes or whatever. He has hookup with the ponies. And then Corey's like, well, if your uncle is, so good at the ponies, how come he lives in a trailer? It's the first time we're finding out that Sean's family comes from a trailer, which I think is a really revealing story element for us to learn.
Yep.
And the way Corey talks about it is kind of shady, right?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, there's some classism going on here.
Well, yeah, and it's also this thing of just like, well, if a successful person couldn't live in a trailer. Like, I mean, Probably, I don't know, but it's still just very assumptuous.
No, I mean, it is very much assumptions, and we talk about this very often. When we're talking about the 90s, there are so many subtle propaganda. There's so much subtle propaganda that we are getting spewed at that we weren't even aware of. And that is our opening scene. Then we do the theme song.
And then we're done with the theme song.
Yeah. All right, Matthew's kitchen. And our next scene, the boys are listening to the race.
And this is the point where Corey's like, yeah, our whole week's allowance is on this horse. And then they're listening to the race, and then it turns out that they win.
Yep.
And they win how much?
They win $99. Yep. Yeah. Which I have to admit, that's pretty good investment. Return on investment.
Well, it's interesting because they're sitting there, and then they send this love note, this Valentine, and it says "Dear Boom Boom," which Corey's like, "Oh, that's what my dad calls my mom when no one's listening."
Yeah.
Yo, so Amy's nickname is Boom Boom.
Exactly.
What's Amy doing in the bedroom to get a name like Boom Boom?
Yo, we don't talk about Amy. Amy gets her some. I don't know about anybody else, but Amy be knocking the boots.
Knocking the boots.
Yeah, I'm just saying because it's just. Yeah, their relationship is very affectionate, and it's funny because it's affectionate without being overtly sexual.
They play with sexuality a lot more than Sean's parents do, apparently.
No, I'm not saying that they don't allude to sex. I'm saying that the way that they display Amy and Alan's relationship, it's very PG, even though it's like also very obvious that they're getting some.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's really interesting how Sean's like, oh, my dad just rotated my mom's tires last year. And just kind of seeing how the kids have seen love in their household and how that ultimately impacts them. I just thought that was a really interesting perspective.
That is a very interesting perspective. But at the exact same time, I was like, what you mean by rotate your mom's tires?
Oh, you thought, yeah, okay, so you're thinking it's innuendo. So,
yeah.
All right.
I'm thinking that like Sean may not have known. His mom. My whole thing is like, Sean may not know what it is, but rotating them tires.
Okay.
I don't know. To be fair, we know that Sean's mom and Sean's parents' relationship doesn't last, so maybe he was just rotating tires.
Oh man, we can hope.
So anyway, now that Boom Boom knows, which by the way, I have to say, did you have like a problem with Sean keep calling her Boom Boom, knowing that it's her like sex name?
Well, I mean, the way they plotted out, it's not like blatantly a sex name, but I felt very weird about him saying it all the time.
Yeah, he constantly being like Boom Boom. I was like, this don't feel right.
No, it's strange. I didn't like it.
Yeah, it to me, like, it's not the equivalent, but it's like hearing someone say daddy, but like in a sexual way.
Oh, bro, I have such a weird history with that I can't even get into it.
I've said it, but at the exact same time, it's like when you hear it outside of the context it's supposed to be said in, it feels weird.
No, it felt weird in any context it was ever said to me. It's always been like, ooh, I feel like we're tapping into something.
You're always tapping into something. Yo, I don't know why. This is a very sexual episode.
Yo, it's the Valentine's Day episode.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so anyway, Amy, knowing that she's about to get some later, realizes that, Corey's 12 years old. It's about time he start babysitting, so they decide to give him a chance.
Which, I mean, is a mistake right off the bat. I feel like anyone would know that.
We immediately know where this is going. And again, so the boys... Going back to it, Amy is going to have a babysitter. The boys get really excited. They've made money. They've made progress. They're winning the bet. And then they do this infamous...
Corey does this funny thing where Amy's like, it pays $2 an hour. And Corey's like, keep the $2, Mom. Buy yourself something nice.
Oh, yeah. He got some money now. And then they do the infamous best friend handshake. And I only, I was like, this is an episode where we see the handshake.
This is the first time we see the handshake, and this handshake was actually something that Ryder and Ben came up with themselves offset one day.
Shut up. That's cool. That's good to know, and that makes it even more authentic, and they are really, really, you can tell they're enjoying doing it, and I just love it.
Well, they just seem like they're really friends at this point.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've been in this groove for a while, but they are everything's working. I feel, even though this is like a filler episode, I feel like it works because they don't give us too much of anyone that we don't need.
Well, that's the great thing about Boy Meets World. When you have all the right elements, even the bad or not so good episodes are still better than like the good episodes of other shows. You know?
Yeah. So from this, Eric comes in, and Eric is just a terrible. Like,
no, Eric is the worst in this scene. He's the absolute worst piece of trash.
Well, he is the worst. He is the worst piece of trash. But what I'm saying is, like, everything we've seen so far, not only is he like a fuckboy, but he just doesn't even know how to do it right.
Well, he comes in and he's so overly misogynistic. Like, it honestly, I'm gonna show you. This is basically what he says, and to me, it sounded like an Andrew Dice Clay joke. And I'm gonna say what Eric said as Andrew Dice Clay, but it's almost exactly the same. So I'm making out with this bitch's best friend, and now she won't go out with me. What's up with this broad? Right? And offensive. Can we all agree?
It is offensive, but I do like your Andrew Dice Clay interpretation.
Well, it just felt like something Dice Clay would say.
Yeah. I told you I met him, right?
I do remember you telling me.
Yeah, we had this conversation.
We did have this conversation. That's actually pretty badass.
Yeah, all right, so keep going. Anyway.
No, I just thought it was super misogynistic, and I'm just kind of tired of this whole, like, every episode Eric's like, oh, this girl won't go out with me, or I want this girl to go out with me. That's his motive in every single episode, and I would just like to see more dimensions to him, because he's getting old, I feel.
Well, I can give you that, and I will say that last episode, ironically, we got a little bit more from Eric, background-wise. It was still motivated by a girl, but at least we got to see.
Every storyline with him is motivated by a girl. He is just obsessed with getting and it's almost like that kind of American Pie, Revenge of the Nerds type of just like teenage, like pent up sexuality. And I just find it to be just weird with Eric.
So, I think it's weird now because, as you mentioned, American Pie and Porky's and, like, all these movies in the past pretty much show that I don't know what it was like to be a teenager during those times, but, like, this is apparently all white middle-class boys thought about. Like, that was it. They had no other issues.
There are so many movies made between, like, I don't know if Porky's are American Graffiti or which one came first.
American Graffiti.
Between American Graffiti and, like, I don't know, even now, there's been so many movies that just about, like, middle-class white kids trying to get laid. Yep. And, like, when you really think about, like, this entire movie is about children trying to have sex.
Yep.
It's just weird to me.
It is weird, but my whole thing is, and I don't know how true this is, but I feel like it's different now just because, like, there's internet porn. It's just like everybody watching porn. So we don't see as many. Like, there's still the whole losing your virginity trope, but, like...
Are you trying to argue that we as a humanity, like, as a society, are better off because we have access to pornography to get out sexual release and we're not, like, going out to the street and trying to force women into awkward situations?
1,000%.
Yo, I mean, prove us wrong.
Literally handle yo shit.
Yeah, I mean, handle. We're better than this, guys.
I don't know why, but this is just how this episode has taken the turn. But anyway, Corey tells Eric, now that he's gotten a little bit of experience under his belt, that the best way to deal with the situation is to take a risk.
Well, Corey, Eric also has this dumb thing where he's like, why won't you go out with me? Why won't you go out with me? And Sean looks at him and goes, you're a little bit country, she's a little bit rock and roll, or some dumb joke like that. I was like, wow, this joke feels so dated. Like, even for 1993, a Donnie and Marie Osmond joke seems dated.
The Osmonds were a TV sensation. All right, so...
in the 70s.
Yeah, but, for some reason, like, you and I know this reference, so therefore it had some kind of merit.
Yeah, I guess so. I feel like that we're the last of the Mohicans when it comes to knowing this reference
yeah,
too.
for
Like the
sure.
next generation will have no idea who Donnie and Marie is, and they'll be
Not at
better
all.
off.
Not in the slightest. I guarantee you can go up to a teenager right now or a 22-year-old and be like, "Who's Donnie and Marie?"
I would just have to reference Mulan. Like that's the only reference I'd have.
And they wouldn't even know. Like, again, we're getting to the age where it's like a so you know the song from Mulan, and a teenager, like an actual teenager, will be like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. But they'll like have a song that just repeats the word Gucci over and over again and call it art.
Hey, do not start this. You sound like an old man already.
Whatever, man.
Gucci gang,
I
Gucci
can't
gang,
get
Gucci
into
gang, Gucci
the
gang.
mumble rap with you.
Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang.
I can't. Like I'm all for black excellence, but just like it ain't my bag.
I should introduce my mom to mumble rap with Panda, and it's just she has the same feelings.
Man, yeah, it's
Bend
yeah.
up. All right. So moving on to the next scene, the boys are kind of a little cocky. They feeling themselves. They tell the class that they gambled with their money and they ended up winning. We bet on tuna.
Minkus is furious by this right out the bat.
Yeah, rightfully so in a way. He points out that it's illegal for kids to gamble. But Corey, again using our favorite white man logic, argues that the assignment was to act like businessmen. So technically, they didn't do anything wrong because this is how businessmen would behave.
The show never at any point comments on the fact that children did gamble, that it was in fact illegal, and the boys got away with it.
Well, got away with it, and then as we will talk in a little bit, they kind of dealt with the mafia.
Oh, there was absolutely some either mafia or prison connections going on for sure through Sean's two-toed uncle.
So this is there was a lot of some shady stuff going on, but yeah, we just gloss over that for the greater point.
I guess so. I mean, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, I mean, they definitely learned their lesson, but their lesson wasn't to not gamble illegally through the mafia. It was don't leave your sister alone.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's the lesson they needed to learn this week, guys, if I'm being honest.
Feeney points out that, they took a risk, and in business will tell you the bigger the risk, the better the reward. And he's impressed. And not only is he impressed, but Topanga is also impressed.
She about that money, that's why.
Yeah, Minkus is like gold digger. I was thinking, we kind of hit on this, but Minkus can be kind of misogynistic himself, because like the moment Topanga is, she's just impressed by Corey and Sean.
I think that Minkus feels like he's entitled to Topanga because of his intellect or wealth, and I'm not about that.
Well, I will agree. I mean, it's kind of the same thing about, I want to say, Urkel and Laura, where it's like I'm entitled to you because I like you, and because I'm the nerd, I'm supposed to get you. Because I'm better than the bad boys that you're going after.
Because I don't take no for an answer and I keep persisting, you should cave in.
Yeah, I mean, like, even, let's just go on, because we're going to get back into this when we check up on Eric. So anyway, I mean, like, no, that's exactly what we're doing. In the next scene, the boys, they're like sitting on the couch at the Matthews place. They're just like, we got money, we got an A, life is good. And enter Eric, and Eric comes in saying that he is a dating god because he got the date that he wanted.
No, he me too the girl.
Yeah, exactly. What he did was he literally stuck himself in her locker and waited there for 3 periods. And because of that, she said yes.
And you know what? I feel like I saw this or variations of this so much growing up that like, oh, if you do a big romantic gesture, then any girl would, be, foolish to say no.
It's the say anything problem.
Yeah, but it's like, all right, well, what's a grand romantic gesture and what's creepy stalker behavior and what's the difference there? And I don't know. I just feel like there was a little bit.
But no, I do like it because what I made note of was like Corey makes the fact he goes, "I didn't tell you to become a stalker." So I'm like, all right, so even at this point in time, it's weird. It's stalker behavior.
Yeah, I think so.
And I like there's something that I will say like it. The show itself has problems, How I Met Your Mother, but one thing that they point out, which is true, is that something is creepy or romantic depending on how into you the other person is. There are plenty of things that are creepy when it's from a person you don't like and they are kind of are seen as romantic, or the world will interpret it as romantic if you're into them.
Well, it didn't seem like this girl had any interest in Eric. He made that abundantly clear at the beginning of the episode because he made out with her best friend.
Exactly. No, I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying that that's something that I've noticed before. It's like you're like, where's the line between creepy and romantic? And it usually comes with mutual interest, because there are just plenty of things where it's like, have you ever heard a friend tell a story about something that they think is good, and you're like, this don't seem so right.
Sure, yeah. No, and I 100% agree with you. What I'm saying is that there doesn't seem to be any reciprocated interest from this girl that Eric stuffed himself in the locker for. We need to explain this to Eric. Eric, that's the lesson Eric should have learned this episode.
I feel like it'll be years before this is a lesson we have to teach Eric. Or, well, that they'll try to teach Eric.
I don't know that he ever learns it.
Yeah.
I think he just moves from heartthrob to deadbeat so quickly that they just give up on romantic storylines after like 3 or 4 seasons.
That's a very good point. And we need to explore that too, because I don't understand, what, like, that's a whole other conversation. Anyway, moving on. Dear Pooh Bear. So,
not as good of a nickname.
Not as good of a nickname. And they also point out she writes Alan a little poem because Pooh Bear is the Valentine that Amy is writing to Alan. And they also make point note that poem's not her strong suit either.
Well, I mean, it's not a very good poem. I want to know where the nickname Pooh Bear comes from, because it can either be something extremely sweet or extremely filthy, depending on its origin. And
I'm thinking Alan walks around with no panties on. Like, that's how I saw Pooh Bear. Like, Alan just walks around in their hotel room with nothing but a t-shirt and no bottoms.
Oh, okay. I thought he was all about that
honey. Again, I don't know. I'm loving this episode.
Oh my God, what are we even talking about anymore? Oh man, yeah, I thought he was just all about that butt stuff. Like,
well, I mean, he could be. He could be. We don't know. Pooh Bear is gonna meet Boom Boom at the place where he proposed, and after they do that, we get this little speech about Corey, who, again, has now been inspired to take more risks. He's like, yo, I've been playing it safe my whole life. And
well, what he says is he's like, I've wasted 12 years of my life being safe. So he gambled won once, and was like, my whole life has been a sham up until this point.
But, okay, so first of all, of course, with Corey, that's how things roll. All it takes is one success, and he's just like, oh, I'm in it. Change of life course.
Well, what I thought was interesting about this is that he was 11 when the show started, so he missed his birthday.
Yeah, but like, even with this is a Valentine's Day episode, and we're kind of skirting that issue too, like how it is in school. So I feel like they're picking and choosing what moments we actually deal with, or they're waiting to roll those cards out later.
Well, yeah, and I think that Valentine's Day, when you're in this grade, is more just like leaving cards on the desk still. I don't think there's any romantic elements yet.
I don't know. We'd already had a kiss, and, Sean was already getting goofy over that one girl a few weeks ago. So I just...
Yeah. I would like to see more consistency with those revelations.
Yeah, all right. But anyway, what I did want to note is we get... Ben Savage's I Want to Live, and it made me laugh because I'm like, we are getting to the Corey comedy that is signature with the show.
Yeah, and that's just the great thing about Ben Savage, is that he can be that really dramatic leading man when you need him to. He can be romantic at times, but when it's time for him to just be funny, he is so funny. And he's almost like at certain points where I'm just like, oh, this is just Ben.
Yeah,
Like
it's
I could
Ben.
see
Yeah.
so much of Ben through this performance.
Exactly. So on that, we move to the next scene because one thing we didn't mention is after after the boys were reveling in their new money, what sparks Corey is the idea of gambling with the $99 that they already have. So he tells Sean to call his uncle and let's bet again. Let's keep rolling. Let's make it happen.
Which, as an audience, when you're watching this, you're like, "Oh, classic mistake."
Yeah, and I have to admit, I thought so. And so in the next scene, the boys are listening to the race. They get overexcited.
No. You're oversimplifying this. You're saying that they were overexcited. Corey is manic, hollering at the radio at the top of his lungs.
He's already
like he just did cocaine for the first time.
He's already got a gambling problem.
Immediate gambling problem. It happened so suddenly.
Well, as we just said, Corey whatever he does quickly, wholeheartedly.
Man, he is unhinged in this scene.
He gets so excited that he accidentally unplugs the radio right when they're about to read the winner, and all we get is a "nuh." And we know that they were going for neck flaps. That's the horse that they needed to win. But since they don't know, they just decide to call Sean's uncle. And
well, what's actually interesting about this is that they were like, what other horses start with "nah"? And they were like, well, no, flaps, Nunzio's Dream, and ironically, a horse just called "Nah," which I thought was kind of funny.
Of course.
But what I thought was interesting was Nunzio's Dream. And I don't know why this stood out to me. I've never heard of the name Nunzio before. Do you know anyone named Nunzio?
Not at all.
The only other time I've heard Nunzio was in Boy Meets World in like 3 or 4 seasons when Topanga gets that job at like that Mexican restaurant and she starts dancing with the guys. One of them is named Nunzio. And it's so weird that I've only heard this name on this show, and I wonder if like Nunzio is like the name of some PA.
Yeah, I assumed as much. That happens a lot when you have writers who stick with a show. Like I noticed, I watch a lot of Shonda Rhimes shows, and there are names that show up in her shows, like in early seasons of Grey's Anatomy, that are main characters in different shows, and I'm like, oh, she likes the name. She likes this name.
You know? Sure, yeah. You could tell that people have a creative pool that they pull from. And that just really stood out to me as just being really unique. And I do wonder if there is some kind of, as you know, like, you know, Topanga is named after a canyon. So I wonder if it's just one of those things of just like, oh, I have a cousin named this. This will work.
Yeah.
Anyways.
No, you're fine. So this is where we meet Frankie Two Toes, or well, we hear about Frankie Two Toes for the first time. And again, what happens is Corey's like, Frankie Two Toes? Why is he called that? And Sean goes, if I told you, I'd have to kill you.
Which, again, immediate, I was like, oh, okay, so this is either some kind of mafia or gang or prison relation.
Exactly. So while he's getting the news, again, we get some of Ben Savage's great comedic timing, because you mentioned it earlier. There's a horse named Nut, and that's when Corey's just like, yo, I knew it. All the smart money was
smart money was on Nut. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, and then he's like, I'm never taking another risk. And then that's when Sean drops the bomb. They've actually won $680.
Which to a kid it might as well be $1 million. Like,
hey, I can use $680 now.
Yo, absolutely, I could use a $680.
Yo, I have $99. If you can give me $680 back, we are good. Or in the words of Corey, let it ride.
Let it ride. I do think it is interesting, and I'm sorry to keep going back to this, but because of just all the issues that we've been talking about, like personally between the two of us, of just like the prison system and law, they really are doing an illegal act that, like, if something were to come to light, like, there would be no responsibility on them.
No,
and they're basically throwing this lower class family member of Sean under the rug in order to get profit from
so
his illegal activity.
This is a whole other conversation.
I know, and maybe it's not the time or place.
No.
But
I'm just saying, like, I'm literally reading this book right now on mass incarceration, and you are completely right. First of all, the idea that these two kids doing it is just fun and games, which it is. There's nothing wrong with being a kid. I think that's important. Just when you look at a show like Boy Meets World, you understand who gets to be a kid and who gets to be carefree and who doesn't.
Yeah, because it really, I mean, even Sean, who we learn has a pretty troubled childhood, I mean, there's still so much privilege there, and there's still just, again, this no one really taking responsibility for the actual thing that's wrong. And I would have loved if they learned throughout this episode, like, hey, we shouldn't like ask the mafia for favors, but there's no reason for them not to do it again in the future. Like, there's none. And I don't know. It just seems strange to me that they would just allow Sean's family, like the guy from the trailer is the one that has the hookup.
Of course he is, because poor people do crime. Have you learned nothing from television?
Yeah. It's yeah. Okay. I mean, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this.
No, you're good. So, and we gotta hurry up because I have like 10 minutes. But anyway,
sure.
Let's see if we can get through this. Let me figure out where I'm at. Okay, let it ride. Here we go. So the boys in the next scene have a pile of money. It's apparently the next day, and they are just reveling in it. Corey feels like he's on a streak. He's so excited. Even when Sean's like, "Look, it's the same amount of money as it was earlier. It's not going to change." Sean's like, "I'm gonna go get a pizza," and when he goes to get the pizza, Corey's again feeling himself. He's like, "Yo, get a receipt. This is a business lunch. Moneymakers now."
Well, I mean, yeah, they're trying to be legit with their money, which, again, they're not very consistent with that either, because they completely abandoned their money to go get an autograph from some guy. I don't know.
So anyway, Amy, while Corey's doing this, of course, he's supposed to be babysitting. This is the time we realize, because Amy calls and she doesn't know where Alan is, and Alan calls and he doesn't know where Amy is. So we kind of get like this B plot that's going on in the background with the parents, which we've known about. And that's when Morgan comes in, and she gives us, her little kiss. And I love her line. She was like, "I know you're new to this, and I'll let you slide, but you're supposed to be entertaining me."
Yeah, she walks in and sees a comical amount of money on her brother's bed. Her brother's first response was, "Nothing illegal is happening here." And she's just like, "Dude, I don't even care. Just like entertain me. I'm bored."
Yeah, and so what's funny, which is a reasonable ask, but of course Corey's on his high and he blows Morgan off. And that's a problem, because when Sean calls from the pizzeria and tells Corey that a baseball player is at the pizzeria, and he's like, "Yo, Morgan, grab your stuff. Let's go. Let's do this." And she's like, "Yo, you didn't play with me, so I'm not playing along with you."
Well, Morgan's kind of a wild card character in general. Like, Eric's always trying to like keep her happy when he like takes her on his dates or whatever. Like, she always just seems like the one who has the power and the upper hand, and she knows it.
Yeah, I mean, because she does, especially as a youngest kid on a sitcom family, she does have the upper hand. And also, just like in the way their family dynamic works, Morgan is a responsibility, and she understands that whoever doesn't take care of her is the one who will get in trouble.
Sure.
And I mean, very understandably so, because she's right. She's supposed to be looked after.
Well, she is a child, and she does have a babysitter, but he's too busy counting illegal money.
So when she goes inside the bathroom and she refuses to leave, Corey decides that he's going to be smarter than Morgan and bets her that she can't stay in the bathroom for 5 cupcakes.
He leaves his sister alone in the room, in a bathroom. In the bedroom is the comical amount of money still spread out on the bed. He leaves all of that behind, and he doesn't even like, "Hey, Mr. Feeney, can you keep an eye on Morgan for a few minutes?" There's none of that happens at all.
Yeah, no. He just, of course, his short-term thinking, because as we've learned in this episode specifically, Corey just responds. He doesn't necessarily think things through right now.
Well, I think the mistake that Corey's making is that he's equating taking a risk to just doing something rash and just going with his first instinct, regardless of thinking it through, instead of a risk being like a calculated move.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And so by taking this quote unquote risk, he decides to leave Morgan in the bathroom. And as soon as he leaves, of course, Morgan comes out. She opens the door, waves him goodbye. He didn't see it. And she decides to play, by herself. She turns on the radio. She's dancing, having fun.
She is home for less than 1 minute before she breaks a damn door down. Less than a minute alone before she breaks a door.
But she immediately knows that she's done something wrong and runs out of the house.
She could have called up to Corey at that point. He was probably not even out of the driveway.
It's a very good point. I don't know, because it seemed like wherever this pizzeria was, it wasn't that far. Sean had left like seconds before, and he was already there.
Sean's already there. Yeah. I mean, Corey, it must be where Chubby's ends up being, I guess. I don't know.
Apparently. In our next scene, Corey comes back. He realizes that the door is now open, which he was pretty sure he left it closed. And then he sees the window is broken, and he assumed Morgan was kidnapped, and immediately is like, oh no, I took one too many risks.
Well, he assumed that Morgan was taken, which we can all agree would have been a better ending to this episode.
Well, I don't know, like, if I want Morgan to be taken, but you're right, in terms of like teaching a lesson, it definitely would have been a game changer, I gotta say.
You're telling me that you prefer the storyline of Morgan being sent to her room for like 2 years versus the idea that she was taken and then came back and had to reassimilate into normal life? That's a way more interesting character.
Of course that's a way more interesting character, but if we're talking about like an alternate reality, that would have changed Boy Meets World. Boy Meets World would have never been able, it would have had to shift to straight Morgan, because no one would care about the middle-class boy who's dealing with his hormones if you had
just regular ass storylines, but in the background just the parents frantically just searching for their daughter. Like, that's what the show should have been.
I would have loved if like they did that and then it was like an Arrested Development type layer jokes where there were like all these flyers of missing Morgan.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone out there is doing Boy Meets World fan fiction. Do the storyline for us. Plot it out. Let's see where it goes.
So anyway, Corey runs directly outside and he sees Feeney again, who's very conveniently in his backyard at all times. And he's like, Feeney, you have to have
February. In Pennsylvania, it's February.
Exactly. He's like, I took a risk I never should have. And Feeney's like, yo, just calm down. It's all fake money. Meaning that Feeney still hasn't caught on that these boys only got interested because it's not fake money. And then
apparently he hasn't been paying attention to Sean's family. I think that's the whole thing. Why would he assume that they have a mafia connection? Why would any teacher assume that?
That's a very good point. At least, Feeney doesn't discriminate in that way.
I mean, he seems like he should.
So anyway, Feeney's like, yo, calm down. And Corey's like, no, I took a risk I never should have. And it was my real baby sister. And then that's when Feeney's like, look, Morgan's just in the treehouse. Calm down. And then
it's interesting when Corey finds Morgan in the treehouse, she's repeating this phrase like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And it's the same thing that Corey says when he first comes into the house and sees that the door was broken.
Yeah.
It's almost as if it's a thing that like
the Matthews family does.
The Matthews family said like like some weird family thing that they do. I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
No, I like that. I pointed out, and you're probably right. It's let's see if it comes back up. But yeah, Corey. I will say Corey gets some brownie points in this because he immediately goes to Morgan and she's like, "Look, I did a bad thing," and he's like, "No, I did a bad thing. I was the one who was responsible, and I'll make sure that you don't get in trouble because." At the end of the day, I was in charge of you, and therefore you wouldn't have done this had I been there.
I was not a fan of any of this, of any of the Corey Morgan scene at all. Wasn't a fan.
How?
I didn't buy any of it. I didn't buy that they actually had a close relationship that would have that kind of sweetness to it. I don't feel like there's been enough development of their relationships for us to care about something like that. Like Eric and Corey, yes, there's been enough development, but like Morgan, I feel, just has she's a neighbor at best. Like, there's almost no emotional connection she has with the central characters of the show, other than just being the sassy one or the wild card or whatever. I mean, Amy, I guess, is her closest relationship, but I just didn't really buy it. I didn't feel that, like, it was a real connection that they had. I don't know. Maybe it was just because it was just, like, a child actor working with a really young child actor, but
I
just didn't.
disagree. I think that
Man.
we've already gotten some of this history. Again, it's maybe not as much as we would have liked, but we've definitely we've already shown Corey be caring towards Morgan. And whenever he realizes, and it does take Corey realizing, but whenever he realizes that he may not have appreciated their relationship or that, she's growing up too fast or whatever, Corey kind of takes a moment. And he's always very sentimental towards Morgan. Again,
I was very uncomfortable throughout this whole thing. Pass for me.
I understand where you're coming from. I just think your reasoning, which is that Morgan and Corey don't have this kind of relationship, I disagree with.
I just didn't like it for whatever reason. Whatever it was, I didn't find it believable, and it made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, that is what it is. But afterwards, in our next scene, Alan and Amy are coming home, and Alan's kind of in trouble because he went to the wrong restaurant. Hence the whole calls and not being able to find each other. And he's like, I went to Chez La Fleur. And Amy's like, no, sorry, Amy is the one who went to Chez La Fleur. And she's like, I can't believe you didn't know where you proposed to me. Was it not a very big deal to you? Let me know where you went. And I think this is funny because had she just let it go, everything would have been gravy. But she insists on knowing where he went. And he's like, I went to Phil's Grill. And she's like, oh, okay.
I didn't like this at all.
You didn't? Why not?
No, because basically what happens is that Amy berates Alan for going to the wrong restaurant. Then realizes that he was at the right restaurant. She was confusing Alan with this previous guy that proposed to her. But the biggest thing is that Alan and Amy have been married, and she never once brought up the fact that someone else proposed to her. That's not cool at all, right?
Really? All right. I don't know how to feel about that because I've been proposed to and I don't necessarily tell everyone I date.
So but you would tell the person you're married to.
But why? When did it come up? As she just said, it's like a what? Like if someone asks, "Have you been proposed to before?" Yes, I will have that conversation. But I don't just go around being like, "Yo, by the way, thank you for being the fifth guy to propose to me."
I don't know. I just know from what I know of marriages, which isn't much. This is something that would have came up and should have came up in conversation at some point. I thought it was weird that she kept it to herself, but if you're saying it's not weird, then maybe that's just me.
No, what I'm saying is I don't have a real answer because I'm sure other people do feel some kind of way. For me, I don't expect someone to tell me whether or not they've been proposed to before because that is none of my business. Just like almost having a child, like say, you had a pregnancy scare before and you didn't tell me. Like that doesn't matter to me because that wasn't with me particularly. Now, if you had a miscarriage, that's something completely different. Had Amy been married before in general, that's completely different. Being proposed to, that's nothing.
I don't know. I feel like, and just the idea that like, they've been together for over 15 years. Like, after like 5 years, you run out of shit to talk about. It never came up, ever. I don't know, man. Even just like, not even like this thing of like, oh, I'm obligated to tell you this as like my husband, but just like hey, like, tell me something new about you. Tell me something I don't know. Like, we're in this car for 3 hours. Like, just conversation happens. I don't know.
It's really again, it's weird to me because in my mind, it's like, why would she even bring up Mark? Like, what? Like, I don't want you talking about your exes either. So, like,
she should have just been like, oh, you were right. I'm sorry. I mixed up the restaurant. There was no reason for her to even bring up the fact that another dude did that. You are right about that.
Yeah, that was my whole point. It's just like she could have been gravy, but she was like, oh, My bad. And that gives us, I mean, not only did it cause a conversation between them, but apparently it's a point of topic that you and I disagree on. So I can't imagine what like this would have been like in real life.
Oh, I feel like that Valentine's Day would have gotten way uglier if this shit was real. Or if this was like Sean's parents who did that.
There's a possibility that it did, because remember, what happens is Alan and Amy go inside the apartment, they realize the window's broken, and, you know, they kind of have to deal with that. And Corey's like, don't worry, I'll pay for it. They're like, how are you going to pay for it? He's like, I would tell you, but like the screaming would wake up Morgan, which reveals
because
that
they would be so angry to find out that their child had connections with the mob and successfully won almost $1,000. They have a reason to be upset.
Exactly, but what I'm saying is it ends after that. We don't really know how this conversation continued. So
we never see him learn from this lesson. Like, man, they're focusing on the wrong thing this episode.
In our final scene, is it our final scene? Yeah, it is our final scene. In our final scene, it turns out that the Matthews Hunter Incorporate is the most profitable company in the class. So not only did the boys get away with it, but they also won notoriety. Again, white man logic.
Totally, yeah. I mean, this is Minkus knows that they gambled real money. Since Feeney never knows, is that what happens?
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes.
Because I feel like Feeney probably would have been super upset to find this out. Like, I wonder how that would have affected the end of this episode if Feeney realized it at some point.
I don't know. That's something for that fanfic. But on this, he asked them if they have any words of inspiration, and Sean says something which I can't even remember. But I just remember Feeney being like, "Yo, that's stupid."
Well, I mean, Sean says a lot of stupid shit. Yeah, he's starting to get dumber as a character, but it's funnier to watch.
It's fantastic. And then that's, of course, when we get our sentimental savage moment where Ben's just like, you know, the greater the risk, the greater the potential profit. And Feeney goes, well, the potential profit makes some lose sight of the risk. And Corey reminds us that you should never gamble with anything you can't afford to lose, which again is kind of the lesson that he got from this. But overall, as you said, I don't really think they learn much.
No, he got the lesson right. It's just you should cut off the end of it where it says anything you can't afford to lose. Never gamble, child.
And so on that, class is dismissed, and Sean comes back up, and he says something to me because that now that you've mentioned it, Feeney really doesn't pick up on. But he goes, "Look, I was so busy counting my money, I forgot to give you your Valentine." And he hands a card to Minkus. And Minkus is sitting there very defeated after losing the bet, and it's just like, "Look, I know it's going to be bad. Should I even open it?" And Feeney's like, "Yeah, go for it." And the card says, "Happy Valentine's Day, turn around." And of course, Minkus turns around, and the boys come out of the hallway and just start shooting him with Nerf gun. And it's funny because we get this cute little closing of Feeney whipping out his own Nerf gun from under the desk. And it's a nice, fun little ending.
I mean, I thought it was cool that Feeney was packing, I guess. He just happened to have a gigantic Nerf gun in his desk. You never know. I guess.
You know that was confiscated.
From who? Corey and Sean both have one, and all the other students in the class seem as though they behave themselves all the time.
But that's it's like is this Feeney's only class? Are there more classes? We never got that answer.
No, I think it changes based on the story.
Very, very true. And that's our episode. We get a cute little epilogue on Amy and Alan.
Didn't like that either because it's Alan apologizing to Amy when Amy was the one who messed up and then gave Alan a hard time about it.
Here's the thing. I knew after you gave me your response that would be how you felt about this epilogue.
There's no reason for it. Stand your ground, Alan.
Okay, so that is our episode. Let's wrap this up. Fanny taught me. What do you got?
Never gamble anything you can't afford to lose.
That's pretty much it. That is direct. And
not a lot of subtlety in this episode, guys.
Not a lot of subtlety, pretty much directness. The lesson I'm going to grab from this is remember where you were proposed to. That's.
I feel like, yeah, that's a pretty good lesson.
Really good. That's something that you should know. I mean, like.
Oh, and also, if you're up while you're gambling, you should continue to gamble because apparently you'll never lose.
Yeah. Well, no. You're forgetting the key factor here. You have to be a white middle-class male.
Oh man. Anyways, yeah. I mean, it was an okay episode. Whatever.
Yeah. All right. So, what grade are you giving it?
C-.
Ooh, I gave it a C.
Yeah, it's unremarkable.
It's a good episode. It's just not a great episode. We've had better, and I'm going off of that. All right,
guys. If you're listening to this without having seen this episode, you're good.
You've made it this far. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. Thanks so much for dealing with us as we've been haphazard and all over the place this episode. You can give us feedback at bromeetsworld@gmail.com or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Extra Ceej. That's XTRACEEJ. And TC, where are you at?
You can Instagram me, Braver Me. And yeah, Black History Month, guys. Learn some stuff this month. Study. Get back to the roots.
We be learning. Okay, remember to dream, try, and do what?
Do good, guys. Do good all the damn time.
All day. All right.
Later, bros.